Hello, and welcome to the Thrive Mindset Podcast. I am so glad you are here with me. My name is Carrie Dahle, and I am your host. I am an entrepreneur, author, podcaster, manifester, and motivator. And I am on a mission to empower you to create the life of your dreams. If you are looking to up-level your life, relationships, finances, productivity, and success, you have come to the right place. I will share with you tools, resources, strategies, my failures, and my successes that have all helped me achieve the life of my dreams. It is my goal with this podcast to help you see your potential and empower you to create the life of your dreams. So let's get to it. Hello. Welcome back to the Thrive Mindset Podcast. I'm so excited to talk with you today. Last week, we had talked about habits, and I had told you we were going to move on to R this week for reflection. But I'm going to change gears on you guys, and I think it will be for the betterment of us all. Because with reflection, you have to have dealt with some other things first before you can actually reflect on yourself. So last week, I was visiting with one of my girlfriends, and we were discussing fear, because fear is in all of us, and it prevents so many people from moving forward and reaching their full potential. And I want to talk about how that fear needs to be embraced and dealt with. So let's dig in. We all have fears. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of not being enough. Fear is just incredibly common, and it can control us, and it can keep us in its place. In fact, so many of us are so stuck in fear that we don't even realize that that's what's preventing us from creating the life of our dreams. But let's start from the beginning. Okay, we are all born with fear, and we're also taught fear. The fear that you are born with is that fight or flee kind of fear. That fear that your body recognizes danger, or that kind of that adrenaline rush. That is the fear we are born with. But unfortunately, we're also taught to be fearful. I was listening to this story the other day. It was probably on a podcast. I can't really tell you which one it was, but it was this lady, and she was talking about fear with her children, which I wish I could go back 20 years with my kids. And I wish that I could change the way that I taught them about fear. Because what she said that just really hit me hard was, we as adults were taught fear, right? And we were taught to be scared and taught to protect our children and all the things. And so children are so fearless. Like, they don't even know that they should be scared of things. So for her example was, her daughter, probably, little, we'll say maybe 6, 7, she was barreling down a mountain skiing, going fast. It was super steep. She was just boom, 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 down the hill. And the mom didn't see this in person, but her husband showed her later. And she was so angry that he just let her just go down this massively steep hill. It was probably a black diamond. And, for a little girl that size, it was scary for her mom to watch it. She could have gotten hurt. She could have broken her leg. She could have run into a tree. All these things. And what I heard in that was the mom was scared, right? Because then she asked the little girl, she said, "How did you do that? Weren't you scared?" And the little girl says, No, I wasn't scared. I didn't know I was supposed to be scared, but you're kind of scaring me now. And when I heard this, I really had to stop and think, because I know that I did that to my children. I know that my own fears manipulated how they should feel about fear. Our oldest son was fearless that way, and still in many ways is, but he would terrify us with the things he would do. And I can recall saying, "Oh my God, get down, get away from there, get away from here, sit down, be still." And I wish, knowing what I know about fear, that I hadn't taught those things. My point is, though, we all are taught those things, and we all have done it to our own children and our own families and to people around us. And now we need to stop and start looking at fear differently. Okay, so back to the two types of fear, right? There's the fear that honestly protects you. And that's a good fear. Embrace that, feel that. But the other fear The fear that controls us, the fear that keeps us locked in this prison of being comfortable, that is the fear that we need to change. Because that fear is not this bear chasing us or this, murderer coming after us. I mean, if you grew up in the 80s like I did, you probably watched a lot of Friday the 13th and horror movies and, all of those. And so you have that kind of fear you learned, right? But unfortunately, we associate that feeling of fear with the same fear of going after our dreams or goals. It's because the unknown of change is scary. It scares us. When we are faced with change in life and growth, the unknown makes us fearful. And when we relate that fear to that bear is chasing us kind of fear, it stops us. It makes us freeze. It makes us say, oh, no, don't go there. Don't go there. When in reality, we should be embracing it and using it as a tool to move us forward. I'll be totally honest. I am constantly fearful. Constantly. I am so afraid of doing this podcast. I am so afraid of finishing the book I'm writing. I am so afraid of this next chapter in my life. But what I do know is that every time in my life that I have feared something and I have pushed through that fear and worked through it, that has been the next huge catalyst in my world. As much as it scares me, as much as I want to stay comfortable in my space, I have actually learned to see those moments of fear as a sign, as the universe telling me, you're going the right way. Keep going. Come on. It's not to say that I still don't pause or I still don't have those worries or that anxiety that comes with it, but I embrace it. And I wish with all of my heart that we were all exposed to this like adulthood class where you're actually taught to evolve the way you feel about fear, right? And your beliefs on it. But unfortunately, we don't have that class. Nobody ever says, oh, by the way, now you're an adult. This is what happens with fear. It's almost ironic how much time as children we're taught to fear. Like really. And I don't think people do it like in a narcissistic kind of way. They do it out of protecting themselves and protecting the ones they love, right? And I mean, I think about that. I grew up in church, right? I grew up in religion, and every part of the Bible and Sunday school and the words the pastors would say, again, all meaning the best for you, like all wanting you to live this great life. But all of it is about fearing Satan, fearing people, fearing evil, fearing the unknown, fear. It's all fear. And please don't get me wrong. For anybody who's in that world, I'm not criticizing that. I'm just saying that it surrounds us, right? In every aspect of our lives, especially growing up. So when we become adults and we start facing these life choices and these changes and these different things, we immediately fall to fear when we should really be using it to push forward. Some of us actually have used that fear in a not so healthy way, like the fear of disappointing your parents or the fear of not being good enough. We've used that in a negative way to drive us to successful things. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, but there's a better way, right? There's a better way to go through this. Jeff, a while ago, and I can't remember exactly, I think he calls it fear setting. He probably heard or read it somewhere, but he started looking at whatever it is he was wanting to do. And he started, instead of saying, what's holding me back? Or instead of saying, this is what I want to do, he started listing out all the things that he was afraid of with moving towards whatever that idea is, goal is, whatever it is. But listing out everything you're fearful of. I'm afraid of failing. I'm afraid of not getting it right. I'm afraid that I don't know enough. I'm afraid, whatever it is. But he would list all the things out. And what he realized with doing that and writing this list of what do I fear and what's keeping me from doing this and what am I scared of, that those things, when you actually look at them, are not that big. They are not the big bear chasing you down the road. They are not going to ruin your life. They're not all that scary. But sometimes you have to list it out and think about it in order to see that it's not that big. Okay, so you may be listening to me now and you're like, okay, Carrie, you're fearful, but I'm not. Are you sure? Because so many people are going through life without even realizing that they're living in fear. They are so confused with the fact of just being in their comfort zone. They have completely confused that living in their comfort zone is actually living in fear because you're not pushing forward. You're not making any movement for change. And change is fearful. I get it. It's so scared. But I mean, think about the things that could be signs that you're living in fear. Perfectionism. That's a really big one for me. I do not like to make mistakes. I do not like to be wrong. It has crippled me my entire life, and I have no idea why. But for some reason in my head, as a little girl, I had to have perfect handwriting. I had to have straight A's. I had to do the best at whatever it was. And if it wasn't to the best in my mind, let alone what anybody else thought. If I started judging myself and putting myself in your shoes and thinking that you didn't think I was doing the best, it was crippling to me. It would ruin me. And I maybe wouldn't show it in that moment to your face, but I would go home and just sit and cry because I didn't do it well enough. I wanted to be perfect. Another sign that you're living in fear is you're settling. You have this amazing dream. You have this thing that you want to do or that you have felt in your heart, but you keep not doing it. You keep stopping yourself. You keep coming up with a reason why you don't have the time, why you're not good enough. I mean, for me, that is the one, probably and I won't say settling. No, it is settling. That is, I just told you I was a perfectionist, but I also settled on some things, right? I settled with allowing myself to think, who are you? Like, who do you think you are that you can do this? I have, since I was young, I have always felt like I have had something to say, like there's something on my heart that I'm supposed to be doing something for this world. And I would say to myself, oh, that's silly, Carrie. Like, really, who the hell do you think you are? Who do you think that you are so good or so wise or so competent that you could teach anybody anything? But the truth is, that's so ridiculous. Because you know what? I do have things to share. And I do have things that have been put on my heart. And I have been guided down a certain way. And it's been there all along. I just was too afraid to trust it. I was too afraid. And you know what? I'm still a little afraid. But I continue to receive feedback and comments. And even if it's just from one person, that's all it needs to be for me. If one person feels better today because I talked about my fears or because I have found a way to get through to them in a way that maybe they didn't hear, that's all I needed. Then that's what I was here to do. Do you procrastinate? I do at times. I would say that procrastination is absolutely another sign of fear because it's a delay tactic, right? It's something that we do and make excuses and find reasons to delay the things, like the big things. Okay, well, back to, clearly I'm really good at all of these. I can find a reason any day and every day to procrastinate on finishing writing a book that I have been wanting to do for years. In fact, I've started multiple books, but this one specifically, which I'm just going to put out there because I'm working towards it. But this one specifically has been on my heart, and it has been pulling and tugging at me for the last 2 years. And I've written quite a bit of it. I really have. But the fear of being rejected, the fear of who am I, the fear of who's going to read it? The fear of approval, the fear of all those things, which are so silly, but they keep me in procrastination. They hold me back. Okay, so we've talked about perfection. We've talked about settling. We've talked about procrastination. And those all seem like fears that maybe, someone working towards something. Those are like signs of their kind of fear. But another kind of fear, which is kind of hard to talk about, right? But it's out there, is using something to numb yourself, to keep you in that spot that's just still, right? Oftentimes when we are scared or stressed or have massive anxiety, we turn to alcohol, or we turn to drugs, or we turn to anything to turn us off. Sitting and watching movies. I mean, the addictions that we all have to numb ourselves are crazy, but we do it because it puts us in this calm, right? It puts us in this don't need to worry. And this conversation is probably for another day, but I just want to point out that if you are someone who numbs themselves, you might just think of that for a moment and ponder that. Is that you being fearful? Because there's a good chance it is. Okay, so you know what fear is. You know why you have it. You know basics of where you learned it. And we could talk all day about all the ways that you've learned how to fear. But what we're actually here to talk about is to stop living in fear and how you can stop letting it control you and let it be your catalyst to move you forward. I think the first thing that you could do, and that I do, and I've learned from Jeff, is to find where that fear and anxiety is coming from. Like, list it out. List out all the things that are scaring you about doing the thing, about taking that leap of faith, of running towards it. List it out. List out every single item. And then when you're done and you've said everything that scares you about it, then look back and go, well, what is that? Is it truly something is it going to happen? And if it does happen, what if? So what's next? Okay. I do this podcast, or I write this book, or I create Thrive Mindset, and people don't like it. Okay. What did it do to me? Nothing. It didn't hurt me. I might be disappointed, but disappointment's not going to hurt me. It's not going to break me. I'm not losing anything. But what you actually might find when you start looking at where these anxieties come from and the source of these fears is other things you need to deal with. Maybe you need to dig deep into what's happened through your life and think about it. Maybe you look back at your life and go, well, okay, I was the middle child, which I am. And middle child is kind of funny because in many ways we were only children because we were all so far apart in age. But I can tell you that my desires to be perfect and be the best were out of competition with my older sister. I can tell you that. I can remember as a little girl thinking and putting her on this pedestal in my own mind and thinking that she was so amazing and she was so smart, and hearing all of the comments, she's brilliant, she reads books all the day, all these things. And so I put it on myself that, oh, I'm not good enough, so I need to work really, really hard to be better, which is silly because the same things were being said about me, but I couldn't hear it. And my younger sister would be listening to this now and say she was doing the same thing, but I didn't know that about her either. So as you sit down and look at your fears and the things you're scared of, address them, acknowledge them, respect them. It's okay, but don't let them hinder you because you'll be okay. The next thing you can do when facing your fear and moving towards challenging and not running away from where you're headed is to realize, and I've said this before, I heard this, I don't know, several years ago. I can't even remember who or what said it. And so I'm sorry if I'm quoting you without giving you credit, but just know that it's resonated with me not my entire life, but the last couple of years for sure. And that is that life is happening for you, not to you. So the universe wants only the best for you. They want you to do everything that you want to do and accomplish everything you want. It's there for you to take. It is there for you to grab a hold, receive all of the guidance and all the tools that you need from God, the universe, your angels, your whatever it is you call it. But it is there for you. So just like being a procrastinator, you have to stop with the excuses. You have to stop making up reasons why you cannot achieve your goals, why you are not good enough, why you cannot do X. Stop making excuses. You can do it. You will do it. You just have to want to. Instead of saying, I can't, you need to say, I can, ... Or instead of saying, I should do this, but I don't really have time for that, but I might do this, but I don't know. You need to turn those shoulds into must. I must do this. I have a non-negotiable every single day. Every single day, there is one thing on my list that I will not let anyone or anything get in the way of me accomplishing. It probably should be to write my damn book. And I will work on putting that on my list. I will. But like for today, even though I had already recorded the reflection podcast, I felt compelled to talk about fear. And I felt like it was a necessary thing. And so that was my non-negotiable. I have, I've been out of town for the past week. I have a million things to do, but this was so important. And as much as, again, maybe I'm scared to share these stories, maybe I'm scared to be judged, maybe I'm whatever, this is my non-negotiable. It's my must. And it is not I should do this. It is I will do this and I must do this, and it is non-negotiable. The next thing I think we all have to work towards in order to get beyond fear is to have a growth mindset. So many of us don't accomplish our goals and dreams because we believe that they are beyond what we are capable of. They believe that they don't know how. And you're right, you maybe don't know how. But if you have a growth mindset, instead of saying, I don't know how, you would say, I don't know how right now, but I'm going to learn how to do it. I think I've talked about, I know I have talked about this before, but I wanted to create journals and planners that suited me and suited the things that I was doing in life. And I wanted to stop scribbling all over other people's, and I wanted to stop, writing in blank pieces of paper and having all these different books and things for the purpose of manifesting life, my dreams, and having gratitude and having reflection and planning out my day. And Jeff looked at me and said, okay, well, go make them. And I looked at him and I said, I don't know how. I don't know what to do. And he just smiled and left it at that. But that smile was, okay, I hear you. But in a minute, you're going to say to yourself, I don't know how, but I can learn how. And I did. And it wasn't hard. If I sat in my I don't know how, and I didn't have a growth mindset, and I didn't have the desire to learn more, I'd still be sitting in that fear and not accomplishing those goals. A growth mindset is one where you realize that no matter how old or young you are, no matter how much you know right now, no matter where you've messed up or what you've done right or what you've done wrong, there's always more to learn. There's always something you can do to improve. There's always another book you can read. There's always another, YouTube video. There's always something that you can be doing to get better. You never stop learning and you never stop growing. And your I can't will be, I can't right now, but I can soon because I will learn how. The next thing that we can do to overcome fear is to realize it's not death and that pain actually brings us valuable insight. Everyone struggles. Everyone fails at times. Everyone's hurt. Everyone has a different level of hardships. But it is those times that if you learn to embrace them, you will grow and refine yourself and change and learn and become better. We are always evolving. That is, if you allow yourself to. If you have that growth mindset and you understand that pain and failure is not the worst thing that can happen. It's something you can change with. It is something that will make you better. The next time that you are faced with anxiety and fear and pain, think about someone who you admire, that you've seen accomplish amazing things, and remember that they too have had their pains, their sufferings, and they have pushed through and accomplished everything that you admire. And they've learned from that fear, and they've learned from that pain, and they've become better. You will too. I love a growth mindset, but the other mindset, outside of Thrive mindset, of course, that I absolutely find necessary in life is the abundance mindset. And if you take that on, you cannot fear, because you cannot be grateful and fearful at the same time. You cannot believe that everything is coming to you and be afraid. When you have an abundance mindset, you are focused on the positive and not the negative. And we've talked about this before. We've talked about energy. We've talked about positivity. All of that is wrapped up into an abundance mindset. So next time you are anxious or fearful, I would just suggest that you pull that gratitude journal back out and that you think about all the things you're thankful for, and you start changing that positivity or that negativity into positivity. And you start realizing that you deserve this. You deserve all the good and all the positivity and all the abundance. It's all coming to you. Now, here's the hard one. Even with an abundance mindset, even with a growth mindset, you are going to fail at times. Everyone does. Every successful person fails at things. There's not one person you can't ask about their failures. They have them. We all do. You are not unique in that. So don't be afraid of that. They are all experiences that help you grow, they help you learn, and they better you. So do the thing. Be that person. Fail. It's okay, because you're going to do it better the next time, and you're going to grow and change, and you're going to push through that fear, and that in itself is powerful. I think the last thing that I want to leave you with in regards to fear is to overcome it, you need to be present. You cannot live in the past. You cannot let those things that you were taught about fear in the past rule how you view fear moving forward. You cannot be so paralyzed by your mistakes and your failures that you're too afraid to step into the next one. You will not be perfect. You will make those mistakes, but you are going to do great things, whatever that is. Whatever it is that you are wanting to do and to dream about, you can get there. Don't let the fear scare you. Instead, look at that fear as a sign that is saying, hurry up, come on, let's go, get over here. This is where you belong. Because, God, I wish I would have learned this years ago. I wish I would have, but I didn't. But the sooner you start chasing that fear and becoming friends with that fear and letting it be that calling, that sign that you are headed in the right direction, the sooner you will see all of the things that you've been chasing after show up. Let that fear be your catalyst to level up. Let that fear teach you, help you, push you, because you can do it. I'm doing it. Fear is a really big topic, and we could probably talk about this for days. But I hope that the few things that we talked about today and the few things that I've shared with you about my own fears and about ways for you to recognize your own fear and or to push through your fear, I hope that they have helped. I hope that they've given you some new thought, some new insight, something that will allow you to start working on changing your mind of how to approach it. I hope that you can become friends with fear. I hope for you that you stop letting it hold you prisoner. Thank you again for being here with me. Thank you for listening to me. I hope that this has been helpful. If it has, please subscribe, like, share with your friends. And remember, I believe in you, and you can create the life of your dreams.